This little monster is under my feet. And she's been under my feet all day. Right? You don't get up here very often, do you? I'm just gonna have a video of the cat. Oh, and there's a window. Don't worry, I ordered a bookshelf so you can sit up here. That was very messy. I did order a bookshelf because I'm out of space. Please don't... I don't know what to do with cat. Alright, you good? Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Bean, and today we're going to do another recent reads. Now, I did a recent reads for like the last 2 times I did a wrap up, and I've just kind of decided that for me this is a heck of a lot easier than doing end of the month. I'm going to be talking about 9 different books this round, and I think that's a really good way for me to do this. So this is how I'm doing it. I know that's not how everybody likes to do it, but for me, this is what is turning out to work out well, because I do have some months where I read like 10 books, and other months where I read 2. So to kind of keep it at least somewhat consistent, we're going to do it this way for now at least. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is In the Roses of Pieria by Anna Burke. This is a Twisted Retreat book. This is back from February. I think I read it in April. It's a very, very pretty book. I absolutely love this version. And honestly, I rather liked this book in general. This book follows a woman named Clara who is a college professor at the beginning of the book, and then she is offered the opportunity of a lifetime as an archivist and historian to archive and categorize a private collection that has to do with her area of study, which is an opportunity that very few people ever get in their lives. So this is really, really exciting for her, and she is pumped for it, but there are a couple caveats to her job, and I won't get into them because they are spoilery, but the main one is that she cannot share what she finds with anybody. No one is allowed to know about this. And honestly, for me, this book was very well done. Like I said, there wasn't an unnecessary word in it. However, the first, like, almost half of it was very much building up what was going on and building up to this actual overarching plot that we have going on later on in the book. And all of the action and intrigue is happening in the second half of the book. That doesn't make it a bad book. This makes it the first book in a trilogy, actually, which I didn't realize, and that will be very interesting. I probably will continue with the trilogy just because I am intrigued and I did enjoy this first one. I gave this book a 3.0 because, like I said, I did end up enjoying it, and I do think I am planning on keeping this book. The next book I read is one that has been long anticipated by me, and that's Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. I needed something really light, and this book just took the cake. It was so good. It was so entertaining. I absolutely adored the characters. Evie is such a fun main character to follow, and I actually found this book through TikTok, through Hannah Nicole Meyer's TikTok. She seems like such a wonderful person, honestly. I'm not, like, there's nowhere I can go around that. She just seems like a wonderful person. And I highly enjoy this book. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. It is predictable. It is so much fun. We have our morally gray villain who is wonderful, and it's just so much fun. I really enjoy it, and I look forward to seeing where it goes. I did pre-order the second one because I do need to have it in my hands. The next one is Apprentice to the Villain, and honestly, this book was just a really good time, is really what it was. So the next book I actually read was one that is a nonfiction that I got from NetGalley, and that is The Self-Sufficiency Garden, Feed Your Family and Save Money by Sam Cooper and Hal Richards. This is a nonfiction book about gardening and about making different types of beds and how to grow plants next to each other, when to plant them. And it really got into a lot of the nitty-gritty details about different plants and different types of planters and all of that kind of stuff. And I found that interesting as someone who is attempting to garden more. I actually am currently growing both garlic and lettuce, because those are the only two plants that came up this year, which apparently is not abnormal. The other ones just didn't make it. So yeah, but I read it, I gave it 4 out of 5. Like, it was good, it was well done, I learned a lot from it, and it's definitely one that I would pick up physically to have as a reference material for gardening when we do hope to have a bit more property eventually, and I do want to have a larger garden where we're able to grow a lot more of our own food. So that is a plan for the future. And yeah, so that's where this book came in, honestly. The next book that I'm going to talk about is honestly one of my favorites that I've read recently, and that is Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. It took me forever to read this book, but I knew just over halfway through this book that I needed the rest of it. I have the second book. The third book doesn't come out till later this year. But this was such an intense book. It was high action, high stakes. This book is inspired by Norse culture, the Viking culture, and Norse mythology to a point. This takes place years after, generations after the gods have basically, they vanished. They killed each other, they're gone. And it follows 3 different characters whose lives end up intertwining as they go on adventures around the world, basically. There's different types of war, there's battles. This book does not hold back as far as violence aspects or any of the punishments or anything. People die, there's blood, there's guts, there's gore, there's a lot of violence happening on in this book. Trigger warnings, obviously. But this is high epic fantasy, and I absolutely loved it. I cannot wait to see where this series is going. I do plan on reading the next book, which is Hunger of the Gods, hopefully next month, but we'll see with school. I'm not sure yet, but I'm so excited. This is Hunger of the Gods. Look how chonky this book is. It is over 600 pages, but it's got pepper on the front. Oh, I didn't say. I gave this book a 4.75 out of 5. The only reason it didn't get a 5 out of 5 was because I did get lost every once in a while because I didn't know a lot of the Nordic terms, and I ended up listening to the audiobook for a lot of it just because I wanted to be able to understand the pronunciation for a lot of these words. And I also had to look up several of the weapons because I had never heard of them either, which just goes to show there's a lot of things I don't know about these cultures, and these are actual weapons that were used. So I think that's really kind of cool, but it did take me out of the story a little bit every single time I had to do that. It also was very dense, and it did take me longer than I wanted to read it. I don't know if that's minus, but yeah, that's the whole thing. Alright, to read something completely different next, I picked up Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Other Strange Tales by Robert Louis Stevenson. I've read this before. There's a fly in here. I've read this before, and I don't mind it. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is a very good story. I gave this a, what did I give it? I gave this a 2.75. Honestly, it's a classic for a reason. It is a very good story. So this book I gave a 2.75 because it is a collection of short stories that includes The Case of Dr. Jekyll and The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, The Body Snatcher, Markheim, The Bottle Imp, and The Ware of Hermiston. If you want kind of like an in-depth look at how I felt about each of these stories individually, if you check out my other channel, I'm actually in the process of doing a series of reading vlogs where I'm trying to read 100 pages a day, and I actually talked about each of these books, each of these short stories individually. So that's kind of fun if you want to do that. But I really liked The Bottle Imp and The Body Snatcher, and then Jekyll and Hyde is a classic that I do enjoy, but I'm not a fan of the language it's written in. I know it's in the style of the time. This was written in the 1880s, but it's not something that I enjoy reading. I don't enjoy reading from that distinct type of writing. It's very much our main narrator in Jekyll and Hyde. His most appealing feature is the fact that he has incredibly boring life, and he says that. He's very proud of the fact that his life is boring and predictable, and yes, so it was a good story. It was interesting. Again, I've read it before. There isn't a twist for me, and everybody's been spoiled for the twist already, but I really did appreciate reading this every once in a while. I think it's something that people should read, but that's about it. It is a short story technically as well. I don't think it's even 100 pages. The next book I read, I didn't plan on reading it this month. I really didn't. And then I picked up The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu and I read it. I read this chonker of a thing. And I really enjoyed it. This is, how do you describe? This is an epic fantasy novel that is all politics and war. It is based off of the Han Dynasty, which is honestly something that I don't read a lot about, so it was new for me, and I have seen some complaints about that, but I don't see why there's something wrong with that. I think it is good. It was a very good story. This is the first book in, I believe it's a quartet, so it's 4 books. This first book follows 2 main characters, technically. We have Kuni, and we have Matasindu. And Kuni basically is from the streets. He's a gangster turned politician. And Matasindu is brought up as the last surviving member of this noble family, and their paths cross, and a lot happens. This book was an excellent representation of how you're brought up can dictate how you see the rest of your life. And honestly, there's so much you could go into with this book that I think it does very well, especially for the time period that it's talking about. I think it did very well, and I definitely will read the rest. I haven't decided if I am going to keep physical copies of these books, other than to say it's a trophy and to say that I read this behemoth of a thing. But I will say this whole series is called the Dandelion Dynasty, and you do understand why it says Dandelion. If you read the book, it is very symbolic in the book. But each book, I believe, is a different generation, because this entire book was a war. Like, an entire war with all of the different battles, everything politically, all what happened. In fact, when you start out, it feels like a whole bunch of short stories that are just kind of feel random, but as the story continues, it narrows down and you understand why you need all of these backgrounds, so you know why characters are doing what they're doing. It's so good. It is so well done in that way, and I honestly do recommend it, but if you are not into politics at all, which I didn't think I was, but I really enjoyed this one, I wouldn't recommend it for if you don't like reading about war or politics or the realities of what happens because of a war. So, yeah, because he does not hold back on anything. Anything. So, trigger warnings again. But I've kind of figured that a lot of my audience here understands that a lot of these high fantasy books have a lot of trigger warnings. I'm not going to list them all. I'm really sorry. If you want listings, just think about war and what happens. I ended up giving this a 4.25 out of 5. Mostly it doesn't get a 5 because there's a lot in here, and I did get lost at times. I actually had to reread a couple chapters a couple times just because I was getting so lost and confused, but still highly recommend. The next book that I read is one that has come to be one of my favorite books of this year, and that is A Short Walk Through a Wide World by Douglas Westerbeck. This is such a good story. So this follows Aubrey, who at the age of 9, it is found she has this disease, curse, I go with curse, where she is unable to stay in one place for longer than 3 days. And when we say place, we mean city. She has to continuously travel, starting when she's 9 years old, otherwise she starts basically dying. And it's very dramatic. Lots of blood happening, honestly. But it's all about her life and her going through these different stages of life, having to travel, making connections in a few days, and then having to leave everything behind. If you read the book, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, honestly, you will love this one as well. This is almost the polar opposite of Addie LaRue, though, because Aubrey almost becomes like a little bit of a celebrity throughout the world, where she's a myth. People don't really believe she exists because she doesn't stay anywhere for very long. She just continuously travels and goes places, and she is unable to maintain a lot of those deep connections, but she also finds people who want to make those connections with her, and they follow her, and they travel with her for a certain amount of time, and it's very, very well done. It is so heartfelt. I almost cried. And I cannot say enough good things about this book. I want more people to read it. Like I said, it's on the level with The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, in my opinion. So highly, highly recommend this one. It got 5 stars out of 5. No hesitations. 2 more books. I do not own either of these two, though. The next book that I finished was Welcome to the Fae Cafe by Jennifer Kropf. This is the first book in the High Court of the Coffee Bean series. I read this one because I bought it off of Amazon for like $2 or something like that, and I was really intrigued by it. The premise is basically this girl named Kate is really ambitious. She's pretty sweet, and she's at a coffee shop one day, and this guy comes in, he's being real rude, and then he ends up attacking her, and she ends up killing him. Yeah, there you go. She kills a guy. It's like the first chapter, too. And it turns out this guy was Fae. Yeah, he was a Fae assassin. And so all of his assassin brethren, all 4 of them, traveled to the human world to hunt her down. And then one falls in love with it. It's a thing. You gotta suspend your beliefs on this one. It was cute though. Honestly, this book was fun. It was a good time for the most part. But I gave it a 3 out of 5. And the reason that it gets a 3 out of 5, 1, the ending. I did not like the ending really for it. I think it wrapped up way too quickly and way too prettily. And it didn't work for me, personally. But also I didn't get any of the romantic tension between Kate and our male love interest, Cress? Cress. Yes, Prince Cress. Prince Cressia. But he goes by Cress. And I didn't like him, like, at all. At no point in this book did I like our male love interest. I didn't think he had a redeeming quality. So, unfortunately for me, that was a complete miss. But the overarching plot of this book was really, really cute, and it was really well done in certain parts. I think it could have done with a little bit more editing, but overall, it was a hit. I will read the following books, mostly because I really like the other Fae that came to this world, and I really want to know their stories. The next one is Moore's book, and Moore is adorable, although for me, Shane stole the whole book. He was just my favorite character in that entire book. So, we'll see. And then the other one's Grumpy. That's all I remember. So, yeah, it wasn't bad, and I make it sound like it's bad. It was not a bad book. It was a good book. It gets 3 out of 5, so it's still getting a passing grade. It's still doing well. Not my favorite, and I'm hopeful to see her writing progress over time as well. So I am curious to see where the High Court of the Coffee Bean goes. And the last book that I'm going to talk about is The Wager, A Tale of Shipwreck, Mutiny, and Murder by David Grann. I have been waiting for about 6 or 7 months in order to get this audiobook from my library. And so when it popped up saying, your hold is ready, I went, I will listen to it now. And I listened to it actually the next day. But yeah, so I got really excited and I listened to it, and I hate to say I was a little disappointed, but that's a me problem. I don't think shipwreck stories do it for me. I don't think I'm that fascinated by shipwrecks like everybody seems to be right now. I did give it a 4 out of 5. It was so well researched. It was great. This is actually the book of the month for my library's history book club. So they're going to be doing a whole discussion on it at my library, which is very exciting, and one of the other reasons I did want to read it. And this is honestly a very, very popular book right now, so I can see why it was well done. There's a lot of drama. It was good. I would recommend it if you're into nonfiction and you have any interest in pirates or any of that kind of stuff. This is the story of The Wager, which is a British vessel that in, what was the year, 1740, was sent on a secret mission during an imperial war with Spain to chase down a Spanish treasure-filled galleon, but it wrecked on the coast of Patagonia. and that ended up leading to a lot of infighting among people. This book talks a lot about life as a sailor in the 1740s and what happened when in 1742 patched together vessel of some of the crew, like 30 members of the crew were left, and there were over 100 to start with. 30 members of the crew showed up and were like, everyone's dead, this is what happened. And then a couple days later, another vessel shows up with like the captain and 2 or 3 others being like, nah, this is what happened. And so there's a drama about it, and there's a lot going on, and it was very interesting. But yeah, I guess this isn't really my style of nonfiction, unfortunately, but it was interesting. I did learn a lot, and I have some basic knowledge about sailing in the 1740s. So there we go. That's what I got for you guys here today. So let me grab the books I have here. So these were the books that I talked about, plus 3 others that I have recently finished. It's been about a month, a little bit longer, maybe like 5 weeks, 6, something like that, since I have posted a recent reads video. So I think you guys should let me know what you think, but what you want me to do, but I think I'm just going to continue doing wrap-ups like this. This just works better for me. So yes, and I like it better. I can kind of choose when to do them as well, so there we go, when I have time to film slightly longer videos. But yeah, I'm really happy with how many books I've read. I'm caught up. I'm actually a little bit ahead of my reading goals so far this year, which is exciting. And yeah, and like I said, I'm doing a challenge, a personal challenge this month where I am trying to read at least 100 pages a day, or the equivalent of. On my other channel, I'm doing vlogs for that, so if you are interested, you should check that out. I would love to have you guys do that, and follow me over there. Shameless self-promotion. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this group of books. Let me know if you've read any of these, what you thought of them. And until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep reading. Bye!